Jerry Jeudy just dropped a touchdown that would have changed the entire conversation around this Browns quarterback battle. A perfectly placed ball from Shedeur Sanders, right in his hands, no defender anywhere close, and it hits the turf. And here is the thing that nobody is talking about yet. This was not the first time, not even close. Over the last several practices, catchable balls thrown to Jeudy have been dying on the ground with a frequency that is starting to raise real questions inside that building. Now, before you jump to conclusions, I am going to walk you through exactly what happened at day 13 of Browns training camp. Every throw, every stat, every detail that matters. Because buried underneath, this Jeudy situation is a quarterback competition that just took a massive turn. A national NFL voice who basically told Cleveland they cannot ignore what is happening on that field. And a decision that Todd Monken has already made in his head, but has not revealed to a single soul publicly yet. If you are watching this on Gridiron ground, drop a football emoji right now in the comments, because what I am about to break down changes how you see this entire roster heading into Saturday. And trust me, by the end of this, you will understand exactly why this weekend feels different than anything we have seen so far. Before moving further, we're pushing for 1,000 subscribers here at Gridiron Ground. If you're enjoying our Browns and Shedeur Sanders coverage, hit that subscribe button and be part of the journey. Let's build this community together. Let me take you right to the moment everyone is losing their minds over, because you deserve to see the full picture before forming any opinion. Shedeur Sanders drops back in the pocket. His feet are set. His eyes move through his progression exactly the way a quarterback is coached to read a defense from his first day in the league. He identifies the coverage, recognizes where the window is opening, and delivers the football on time with accuracy that would make any offensive coordinator in the NFL nod approvingly. The ball arrives to Jerry Jeudy in stride, both hands available. No cornerback draped on his hip forcing some kind of desperate adjustment. No safety crashing down from the deep half creating a collision at the catch point. This is as clean a touchdown opportunity as any receiver in professional football could ever ask for, and it hits the ground, right there, in front of everybody watching. That is not an opinion or an exaggeration. Multiple reporters who were physically standing on the sideline at Berea confirmed it. The ball was where it needed to be. The throw was what it needed to be. The catch simply did not happen. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. This was not some isolated incident that you can brush off as a one-time mental lapse during a long camp. By several independent accounts from people covering this team daily, this marked at least the second or third time during this specific stretch of practices that a perfectly catchable football intended for Jeudy ended up on the turf instead of in the stat sheet. That is a pattern, and patterns deserve honest conversation. I want to be very careful here, because there is a massive difference between documenting what is actually happening on the field and manufacturing some dramatic sabotage narrative just to get clicks. I'm not going to stand here on Gridiron ground and tell you that Jeudy is deliberately undermining his own quarterback. I have zero evidence of that. Nobody does. What I do have is a clear and documented sequence of drops on accurate throws that should have been completed. That is a football problem, a real one, and it deserves to be discussed honestly without spinning it into something it might not be. The frustration here is legitimate, though. You have a young quarterback delivering throws that would be highlight reel material for any team in this league, and the final product is getting sabotaged not by bad protection or bad reads, but by the football simply not sticking in the hands of a receiver who was selected in the first round, specifically because of his ability to make exactly these kinds of catches. What made this particular drop so maddening for anyone watching is the context surrounding it. Sanders had been building toward exactly this kind of moment throughout camp. The anticipation, the ball placement, the timing, all of it was right. And instead of walking off the field with a clean touchdown on his resume for the day, he is left watching a ball roll on the grass, knowing full well he did everything in his power to give his receiver a chance. But something way bigger was brewing beneath the surface of this practice. And what came next puts this entire competition in a completely different light.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Let me walk you through the full stat tracker from day 13, because the Jeudy drop stole all the oxygen out of the room, and most people completely missed what both quarterbacks actually did across the entire practice. Sanders finished the day 13 of 21 passing with 1 touchdown. Now take that touchdown throw out of the equation for a second, the one Jeudy let die on the ground, and suddenly you are looking at a quarterback who should have had 2 touchdowns on the day with a completion rate that reflects genuine command of this offense from the first snap to the last. He was not spraying the ball. He was not guessing. He was processing the defense, identifying his targets, and delivering the football where it needed to be with a consistency that has become almost routine at this point in camp. Deshaun Watson finished 12 of 17 with 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. On paper, that is a clean day. 70% completion rate. No turnovers. No catastrophic mistakes that give the coaching staff a reason to scratch their heads or second-guess anything. And I want to be fair about that, because I would be a hypocrite if I only highlighted Watson's rough practices from earlier in camp without acknowledging the cleaner ones as they show up. The volume was noticeably lower, though. 17 total attempts compared to 21 for Sanders gives you a smaller window to evaluate, and smaller samples inherently make it harder to draw sweeping conclusions in either direction. Efficiency matters, but so does volume. And when one quarterback is consistently getting more reps and more opportunities to make plays happen, that itself tells you something about how the coaching staff is distributing its evaluation time between the two. Dillon Gabriel went 4 of 5 in limited action, a small sample that does not tell you much on its own, but does confirm he is handling the reps he gets cleanly enough to stay in the conversation, at least on the fringes. Then there is Talon Green. And the silence around his usage is becoming its own kind of statement at this point. He still is not seeing first-team reps. Day after day, he remains on the outside looking in, while the top of this depth chart continues to sort itself out between Sanders and Watson. Nobody is really talking about it because the top 2 names are generating all the headlines. But Green's absence from meaningful reps this deep into camp suggests the coaching staff has already narrowed this competition down to a 2-man race, whether they are willing to say that publicly or not. The gap between Sanders and Watson in these daily trackers has been one of the most fascinating threads running through this entire camp. Some days Watson looks more polished. Some days Sanders looks more dynamic. But across the full body of work, across all 13 of these practices now, one quarterback keeps finding ways to create moments that linger in the memory long after the session ends, and the other keeps turning in days that are professional, competent, and largely forgettable. That distinction matters more than any single completion percentage on any single day. And the people who will ultimately make this decision know that better than anyone watching from the outside. Here is where things get genuinely interesting, and where this competition moved from a local Cleveland debate into a full-blown national conversation. Rich Eisen, a voice that carries real weight across the entire NFL media landscape, went on his own show recently and said something that landed like a bomb in the middle of this quarterback battle. His point was direct, and he did not dress it up in diplomatic coach speak. He said Todd Monken cannot realistically look at his own locker room and tell those players that a different quarterback is starting if the guy...
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Guys inside that building genuinely believe Sanders has outplayed and outcompeted Watson across the majority of this camp. Think about what that actually means coming from someone at that level. This is not a random fan on social media firing off a hot take. This is not a local beat reporter trying to stir the pot for engagement. This is a nationally respected NFL voice with no obvious rooting interest in Cleveland, specifically telling the world that the internal dynamics of that locker room matter more than any contract number sitting on an accountant's desk. Eisen took it a step further too. He drew a direct comparison to what happened with Russell Wilson in Denver, a franchise quarterback, a future Hall of Fame resume, a contract that guaranteed him massive money for years. And the Broncos still moved on from him entirely because the performance on the field did not justify the investment on paper. That comparison is not subtle, and Eisen was not being coy about the parallel he was drawing. If Denver could look at Russell Wilson's contract, acknowledge the financial hit, and still make the football decision to go in a different direction, then Cleveland can absolutely do the same thing with Watson if the evidence on the field points clearly enough towards Sanders being the better option right now. What makes this particular moment so significant for anyone following this competition on gridiron ground is that it validates something fans have been screaming about for weeks. The eye test matters. The daily reps matter. The way a quarterback commands a huddle and delivers in crucial moments matters. And no amount of guaranteed money should override what is actually happening between the lines if the coaching staff and the players in that locker room can see the difference with their own eyes. There is a psychological reality to locker room dynamics that outsiders sometimes underestimate. Players talk. They watch film together. They see who is earning it and who is coasting on reputation. If the majority of that roster believes one guy has been better, and the coaching staff goes the other direction purely because of financial obligations, that creates a fracture, a crack in the foundation of trust between the men making decisions and the men executing them on Sundays. Eisen understands that, and his willingness to say it publicly on a national platform gives this entire conversation a weight it did not have even a week ago. But the quarterback competition was only one part of what made today's practice so revealing. And what happened with the rest of this receiver room tells a story that has been building quietly for days. Everyone is so fixated on the Jeudy drops that they are completely missing something genuinely exciting happening across the rest of this receiving core. And honestly, that might be the most underreported storyline of this entire training camp. Start with Isaiah Bond because this kid has been turning heads consistently, and today was another example of exactly why. The connection between Sanders and Bond is not just showing up on random one-off plays. It is building into something real. Something with rhythm and timing and trust that looks like it has been developing for months rather than just a couple weeks of camp. There was a specific moment today where Sanders put a ball in a spot that required Bond to lay out completely, fully extended, diving catch, and Bond made the play. That is not just athleticism. That is belief. Belief that the ball is going to be where it needs to be. Belief that the opportunity is worth sacrificing your body for. That kind of trust between a quarterback and a receiver is earned one rep at a time, and it is showing up consistently now between these two. I also want to give Watson fair credit here because he connected with Bond on a clean, accurate throw today as well. Good timing, good placement. A ball that showed he can work with this receiving group effectively when the protection holds up and the reads are there. It would be dishonest to ignore that just because Sanders happened to produce the flashier finish to the day. Then there is Casey Washington, and what he has been doing throughout this camp deserves its own dedicated conversation, because this is not some preseason darling who flashed once and disappeared. Washington has been finding soft spots in zone coverage with a consistency that suggests real football intelligence, not just raw talent hoping to stumble into open space. He is reading coverages, settling into windows at the right depth, and then picking up real yardage after the catch with a physicality that makes him difficult to bring down in the open field. The chemistry between him and Sanders has been building steadily, rep after rep, practice after practice, to the point where it looks like a connection that could genuinely translate into regular season production. You have also got receivers winning contested catches against top-level cornerback competition in practice. Guys getting physical at the catch point and coming down with the football in situations where the defensive back has position and leverage. and should theoretically be making a play on the ball. That kind of aggressive mentality at the receiver position changes the entire math of a passing offense, because it means the quarterback does not have to be perfect on every single throw. He just has to be close, and the receivers will do the rest. Even with the Jeudy situation hanging over this group, the overall depth and talent level of this receiver room is legitimately exciting. And that depth matters enormously for whoever wins this quarterback competition, because it means the passing game has multiple viable options on every single snap, rather than being dependent on one or two specific players to carry the entire load. What happened during the 2-minute drill, though, revealed something about Sanders that statistics alone cannot capture. And it might be the single most important detail from the entire day. Both quarterbacks ran 2-minute drill scenarios today. Both started from their own 21-yard line. Both had under a minute on the clock, and both ultimately drove their respective units down the field for field goals. On paper, that looks identical. Two quarterbacks facing the same situation producing the same result. But what happened?
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Within those drives tells a completely different story about how each man operates when the pressure tightens and the margin for error shrinks down to almost nothing. Sanders was working on a day that multiple reporters described as flat and lackluster for long stretches. The overall energy of practice was low. The competitive intensity was not at its peak. And in that kind of environment, it is incredibly easy for a quarterback to coast through a drill rather than treating it like a genuine game-deciding situation. Sanders did the opposite. On 3rd down during that final drive, with the entire 2-minute scenario hanging in the balance, he lofted a ball downfield to Isaiah Bond. The throw visibly wobbled in the air. It did not look clean coming off his hand. It did not spiral tightly the way a textbook deep ball is supposed to. And for a split second as it traveled, every person watching probably thought it was going to fall incomplete. Bond laid out completely, full extension, diving catch, secured the football and set up the field goal that gave Sanders the finish he needed to end the day on a high note. Now here is the part that does not show up in any stat sheet. That throw happened at the end of a practice where the energy was dead, where the motivation to push through and compete at the highest level was at its lowest point of the day, and Sanders still found a way to deliver a moment. That is not luck. That is not coincidence. That is a quarterback with a specific mental wiring that allows him to elevate precisely when the situation demands it, regardless of what the environment around him feels like. I do want to add important context about the defense they were working against, though, because honesty matters here. This Browns defense without Myles Garrett is not the same unit it was last season. Garrett was the kind of singular force who could erase an entire side of the field by himself. His ability to collapse the pocket from one edge changed how every offensive coordinator in the league had to game plan against Cleveland. That presence is gone now after the trade. And without it, the pass rush pressure these quarterbacks are facing in practice is not quite at the level it would be against a fully loaded NFL defensive front in a real game. That does not take anything away from what Sanders did today. But it does mean we need to temper expectations slightly heading into Saturday, when he will be facing a Chicago defensive line that has no reason to hold back and no familiarity with his internal clock or pocket movement tendencies. Watson's 2-minute drive was efficient and controlled. He moved the ball, avoided mistakes, and produced the same end result. And again, I want to give credit where it belongs, because that kind of steady, managed football has genuine value in late game situations. But steady and managed is not the same thing as electric. And the difference between those two qualities is exactly what this entire competition has been about from the very beginning. Todd Monken dropped a piece of information today that changes everything heading into this weekend. He confirmed publicly that he already knows who is starting against Chicago. The decision has been made inside his head, but he is not revealing it yet. Instead, he plans to tell both quarterbacks directly tonight during a private team meeting before making anything public. Think about the psychology of that for a moment. He already knows. The evaluation in his mind has reached a point where he has enough information to make a call, but he is choosing to handle it face-to-face with both men in a closed room rather than leaking it to the media or announcing it at a press conference. That tells you something about the kind of culture he is trying to build in that locker room. Respect, directness, accountability delivered privately before it becomes public content for the rest of the world to dissect. The structural plan for these two preseason games is clear and worth repeating one final time because it is the single most important framework for evaluating what happens next.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Starts against the Bears plays at least the entire first half. The other quarterback comes in fresh for the third quarter. And the following week when Buffalo visits Cleveland, that entire order flips completely. Both men get a full half of real game action in each contest. Both men get a simulated 2-minute drill opportunity, and both men face the pressure of performing on a live broadcast where there are no dovers and no practice reps to fall back on if something goes wrong. For Sanders specifically, Saturday needs to answer one critical question. Can the traits that have defined his camp, the anticipation throws, the situational discipline, the chemistry with Bond and Washington and this entire receiver group, survive contact with an unfamiliar defensive scheme designed specifically to confuse him? Practice reps against your own defense are valuable, but they have a ceiling. You learn your own team's tendencies. You recognize your own coordinator's favorite coverage disguises. An opposing team brings entirely new problems. For Watson, Saturday needs to answer whether the clean, efficient stretches like today can hold up under genuine, unscripted pressure from a pass rush that is not holding back, and a defensive coordinator who has spent real time studying his tendencies on film. If you have been following this journey here on Gridiron Ground, you already know this weekend is not just another preseason game. It is the first real examination under conditions that actually resemble what these quarterbacks will face once the games start counting for real. There were also injury updates worth tracking heading into Saturday. Tyson Campbell missed another practice. Ethan Posick was not on the field at all. Carson Schwessinger and Parker Brailton are both dealing with issues that make them unlikely to play against Chicago. Those absences matter because they affect the quality of competition on both sides of the ball and change how we should evaluate whatever happens under the lights this weekend. But before we get to Chicago, there is one more conversation we need to have. And it is about the player whose name has been on everyone's lips all day for all the wrong reasons. I saved this for near the end deliberately because I wanted you to have the full context of everything else that happened today before we circle back to the situation that is generating the most heat. Jerry Jeudy is a first-round talent. Nobody in that building or anywhere across this league seriously disputes that. His route running technique is polished. His ability to create separation against press coverage has been on display throughout this camp. When you watch him work off the line of scrimmage, you see a receiver who understands leverage, timing, and how to manipulate a defensive back's hips in a way that creates genuine open space at the top of his route. That skill set is real. It is not manufactured or exaggerated. It is precisely why he was drafted where he was, and why multiple teams in this league considered him a high-value acquisition. But none of that matters if the football is not sticking in his hands when it arrives. And that is the honest, uncomfortable truth about what has been happening over these past several practices. The drops are not occurring on poorly thrown balls that force difficult adjustments. They are happening on accurate passes delivered out of clean pockets with proper timing and placement. When the protection holds up and the quarterback does his job, and the ball arrives exactly where it should, and it still ends up on the ground, the issue is sitting squarely with the receiver. There is no external factor to point toward, no convenient excuse available, It is a concentration and finishing problem, and it needs to get fixed before real games begin. Here is what I think makes this situation particularly important heading into the rest of camp and into these preseason games. Jeudy is not competing in a vacuum. This receiver room has depth, real depth. Guys like Bond and Washington and others are making plays consistently and building trust with both quarterbacks on a daily basis. If Jeudy cannot lock in and finish catches that hit him in the hands, other receivers will absorb those targets. That is how professional football works. The opportunities do not wait for you to figure it out. They migrate toward the players who are producing. I am not going to pretend this is a permanent problem or declare his career in Cleveland over because of a rough stretch in training camp. Drops happen to every receiver. Even the greatest pass catchers in NFL history have gone through stretches where the ball just was not sticking. The difference between a rough patch and a real concern comes down to response. Does the focus sharpen? Does the next contested opportunity get finished cleanly? Does he show up Saturday under the lights and remind everyone why he was considered one of the most talented route runners in this draft class coming out of college? If you are part of the Gridiron Ground family, you already know we evaluate fairly here. We do not manufacture drama, and we do not ignore real problems. The Jeudy situation is a real problem right now, and it deserves honest attention without either exaggerating it into something sinister or dismissing it as meaningless because the talent is obvious. What happens next with his hands will determine whether this is a footnote in an otherwise strong camp or the beginning of a much bigger conversation about his role in this offense moving forward. There is one element of this entire evaluation that almost never gets discussed in any of these daily breakdowns, and it might be the most important factor of all: offensive line performance and how it directly connects to everything happening downstream in the passing game. From what was described across today's practice, the pocket integrity in front of Sanders held up reasonably well for the majority of his reps. That extra half second of clean protection allowed him to work through full progressions rather than being forced into rushed, compromised throws under duress. And that matters enormously for a quarterback who is still building overall consistency at this level. A clean pocket produces better ball placement. Better ball placement should produce higher catch rates. When you have a quarterback delivering accurate passes from a stable platform with proper mechanics and the receiver still cannot finish the catch, that isolates the problem in a way that removes all ambiguity. The protection did its job. The quarterback did his job. The failure point is specifically and exclusively at the catch point. That is not a coaching problem or a scheme problem or a protection problem. That is a hands problem. And the coaching staff can see that distinction clearly on film when they review today's tape tonight before that team meeting where Monken reveals his starting quarterback decision. On Watson's side, the protection question matters differently. His history with taking sacks and holding the ball too long is well documented across multiple seasons now. If the pocket was clean today and he still only attempted 17 passes, that suggests the issue might be less about protection and more about processing speed or willingness to pull the trigger on throws that are available but require anticipation rather than confirmation. That is a subtle distinction, but an important one. Sanders has been throwing with anticipation throughout camp, delivering balls before receivers have fully completed their breaks because he trusts the timing and believes the window will be there when the football arrives. Watson has historically been more of a confirmation thrower, waiting to see the receiver open before delivering rather than trusting the route concept to create the opening. Both approaches can work in the NFL, but one of them tends to produce more explosive plays and more chunk yardage in the passing game. And this coaching staff has watched both styles play out side by side for 13 consecutive practices now. The offensive line also factors into the Saturday evaluation because Chicago is going to bring pressure that these quarterbacks have not seen from their own teammates. Different rush angles, different timing on stunts and twists, different levels of physicality at the point of attack. How each quarterback handles that new kind of pressure will tell the coaching staff more in one half of real football than an entire week of controlled practice reps ever could. And the line's ability to hold up against an unfamiliar front will directly determine how much time each quarterback actually has to operate and make the throws this offense needs. So here is where everything stands as this team packs up and heads to Chicago. Sanders closed out a flat, lifeless practice day with exactly the kind of moment that has become his signature throughout this camp. A clutch throw in a pressure situation when nobody around him was matching his intensity. Watson turned in a clean, professional outing that deserves honest credit even if it lacked the kind of defining highlight that separates good from special. The receiver room showed both its tremendous upside and its most glaring remaining question mark in the same practice. Rich Eisen told the entire country what Browns fans have been saying for weeks, and Todd Monken is sitting in a room tonight telling two quarterbacks something that could reshape the trajectory of this entire franchise. The Jeudy drops are real, and they need to get fixed. The Bond and Washington connections are real, and they need to keep growing. The defense without Garrett is a different animal, and that context matters for everything we evaluate from here forward. Drop your prediction in the comments right now. One word: Sanders or Watson. Whoever you think Monken is naming tonight as the starter for Saturday. I want to see where this community stands before we get our answer. If this breakdown gave you something every other channel missed, then you already know what to do. This is Gridiron Ground. We do not guess. We do not manufacture. We break it down honestly, and we let the football speak for itself. Saturday night, the football speaks for real. I will be right here breaking down every single snap. See you in Chicago.